Today, me and my group will be presenting the project of the hidden gem in Nilai. We will be introducing a Catholic church which is located in Nilai. Some of you may know this church by the news of it burning down. So today we will be focusing on the history and what had happened to the church. Our group member have actually talked to the local pastor about the history and what had happened, but the conversation was way too long to put in this presentation. So I will be here to simplify the whole thing for you guys. Let us get into some of the history of this church. This church was named Church of Saint Theresa. Who is Saint Theresa first of all? Saint Theresa was once an ordinary kid living in a small town called Lisieux in France. Now, until the year of 1800s, she started to develop a strong spiritual connection when she turned 3 or 4. She was surrounded by her family. Her family was quite wealthy that time because her dad was a watchmaker, and so he bought a bungalow for the family to stay in. Unfortunately, her mother was sick, so her mother spends most of the time in the living room. And despite of this, Theresa did not complain about the life she had. Instead, she was grateful for what she had. She said because of this, she learned many things about God through her family. Because their whole family would spend time with the mother in the living room. So this developed a really close bond and a unique kind of love. On a Sunday morning, Theresa's father would bring the children to church, including Theresa. Now, along the way to church, she would pick up some flowers as an offering to God. Now, when she turned 8, she heard a prisoner was about to get hanged for his crime. So she saw this as an opportunity and she wanted to make an offering to God by converting the prisoner. Now, this prisoner wasn't a good man. He was against God and spending his whole life resenting God. Despite of this, Theresa started praying for this prisoner day and night, begging God to let this man to be converted. Now, on the execution day, as the prisoner was walking up the gallows, there was a priest standing on the gallows. The prisoner then rushed toward the priest and grabbed the cross on his chest and started kissing it. Now, from this act, it became a sign that the prisoner had been converted. So the next day, Theresa saw this news on the newspaper saying what the prisoner had done. Then Theresa had realized that God had answered her prayers. So she took this upon herself and started praying for the people in need at a young age. When she turned 15, she heard a calling that God wanted her to enter the convent. But to become a nun, you need to be at least 21 years old. But Theresa's mind was made up that time. She heard the calling of God and she couldn't bear to wait that long. So she traveled with her dad to Vatican to personally ask the Pope for the permission to enter the convent. So the Pope then replied, "Well, my child, do what you are meant to do." Soon her desire was fulfilled and was able to join the Carmelite convent of Lisieux. At the age of 24, Theresa unfortunately died from tuberculosis. Before she died, the elder nuns asked her to write down her ways of spiritual practice. She wrote 3 books explaining her little ways. After her death, her book was published and her teaching spread from country and country. Eventually, it reaches Malaysia. The first church of Saint Theresa in Malaysia was actually in Seremban. So a priest named Dominic MacDougall would come from all the way from Seremban to Nilai, which is really far away because there were no cars at that time. He would reach out to the people who are working in the estate in Nilai and gather them for a prayer once a month or twice a month. In 1930s, they bought a piece of land and the church was built and completed in 1935 in Nilai. In those days, the church had around 20 Catholic followers. As the land in Nilai developed, lands were sold and housing areas and universities were built. So families and students would move into Nilai. And the church population increased to about 1,400 members. 6 or 7 years ago, when it was 2011 on a New Year's Day, slightly after the morning service, about 11 o'clock, a fire started in the back of the church. The fire department came rushing and found out that it was actually an old wire that started the fire. And the fire spread and burned down the old part of the church down. After 3 months, a new building was completed beside the burned down church as a community center. The church itself is for prayers, and the community center was built to take care of the people who have other needs, such as Sunday schools for children, activities for mothers and fathers, to improve their faith in God. Now, this particular church in Nilai is one of the 5 Catholic churches around Negeri Sembilan. Nilai, Seremban, Mantin, Port Dickson, and Tampin. Some says the fire was supernatural and some said the fire was coincidental. But Father Eugene said it was just a natural accident that took place. But luckily, the accident did not bring any casualties, but an unforgettable experience for the committee of the church. It has definitely changed the understanding of the practices in the church. Normally, people would come into the church for the service, and after the service, each community would go back individually. But after this incident, people in the community have been improving in terms of their relationships. Because through that incident, people are forced, in a way, to spend time with each other. In conclusion, if you walk into the church, there will be some pictures and posters about Saint Theresa hanging all over around the church. The pictures of Saint Theresa that are hanging on the wall of the church were like the pictures of our grandparents who are dear to us that have passed away. And the story of Saint Theresa is passed down like how our grandparents' story were passed down to us by our parents. For example, like the way they suffer through life, what accomplishment have they done, something like that. And the pictures and stories of Saint Theresa is to help people to understand and inspire them to follow how Saint Theresa sacrifices herself for God. Thank you.